Okay, what is up, tycoons? What's up, traders? Super excited for today's video. Now, we have big news going on in the war aspect of the U.S. and globally. U.S. and militias linked to Iran trade airstrikes in Syria, the Pentagon says. The U.S. strikes on Thursday killed 11 people, according to the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, which is a group that monitors violence in the region with a local network of sources. 6 were Iranian-backed militants in a warehouse in the city. 2 were killed on the outskirts of a surrounding town, and 3 others were killed in the surrounding desert. The number of fatalities is expected to rise as the strikes left several militiamen injured, the group wrote online. Now, neither Iran nor Syria appear to immediately acknowledge the strikes. So we're going to cover how you could potentially profit off of this. Now, we hate to necessarily be profiting off war and, people's lives being lost. But, things like these are things you have to keep up with, and this could affect certain war-related stocks. So I'm actually going to dive into a few of them. We're going to take a look at RTX. We're going to take a look at LMT, and we're going to take a look at dfen, DFEN. So make sure to smash that like button, subscribe to the channel if you guys are new, so that way you don't miss any of my constant news or updates going on in the markets, as well as the really good and, very precise technical analysis. Now, speaking at a joint news conference in Ottawa, Canadian Prime Minister and President Biden said Friday, to make no mistake, the United States does not emphasize seek conflict with Iran, but be prepared for us to act forcefully to protect our people. That's exactly what happened last night. Now, they made remarks saying that we do not seek conflict with Iran. We don't seek escalation with Iran, but the strikes that we took last night were intended to send a very clear message that we will take the protection of our personnel seriously and that we will respond quickly and decisively if they are threatened. Renewed violence imperils de-escalation attempts. The attack and retaliation pose threats to recent negotiations aimed at de-escalating tensions across the Middle East. Earlier this month, Iran and Saudi Arabia agreed to restore diplomatic ties in a deal brokered by China, raising questions about whether U.S. influence in the region is at risk of being overshadowed. Now, there's been lots of, news with the U.S. and war and weapons and things like that. If you take a look over here, is the United States running out of weapons to send to Ukraine? Ukraine war is depleting U.S. ammunition stockpiles. The U.S. Launches airstrikes in Syria. Several more attacks against U.S. bases in Syria after alleged Iranian drone kills people. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to dive into, as I mentioned, a few of the charts. Now, remember, none of this video is financial advice. This is simply just a free video on YouTube, and I'm going over some of the recent news, updating you guys on the information, as well as breaking down the charts and any patterns that I see on here. So we're going to go ahead and jump straight into it. We have RTX, which is Raytheon Technologies, which is a war-related stock on the left over here. And then we have Lockheed Martin, LMT, which is another war-related stock over here on the right. So on the left, RTX actually has a nice bull flag setting up here, right? Here's our flag pole, and then we have this nice symmetrical triangle pattern forming here. Now, we've tested this bottom trend line about 4 or 5 times here recently on the daily chart, and the more you test the trend line, the weaker it gets. So if we don't see any positive movement to the upside soon, there is a strong chance that we could break this trend line and head back down towards the $90 region. Okay, but with that being said, if this situation continues to escalate, there is potential that investors in Wall Street and institutions may start to pour into some of these war-related stocks. And if that happens and we get a breakout above this trend line here, our top trend line, we could see RTX head up to the 107.5 region or 111. Those are going to be the 2 bullish price targets to the upside if we do get a breakout off of this play. We'd have to take out our previous highs here of 104, and above 104 is really when we can see those potential bullish price targets hitting. Now, keep in mind, we are testing that trend line a lot, and if we break it, most likely we're going to see it head down to that $90 region. All right. Now, when it comes to LMT, Lockheed Martin has about 2 patterns that I'm seeing here. You could say we have an inverse head and shoulders right now with our left shoulder here, our head right here, and a right shoulder forming here as well. Now, something worth noting is very similar to RTX. We have tested our upwards trend line here about 4 or 5 times on the daily chart. And again, the more times you test these trend lines, the weaker they get. So if we see a breakdown in LMT, okay, this most likely would take it back to that 440 to 450 region if we end up getting a breakdown. But as I mentioned before, if we get a breakout and this war situation in news escalates and continues to escalate, we may see investors and hedge funds and Wall Street really try to pour into some of these war related stocks. And if we get a breakout above our previous high here of 500 on LMT, we could see it go high as up to 524 and 548. Those are going to be some of the bullish price targets that I would look for on the upside, as well as the bearish price targets that I mentioned in both stocks in case we get a breakdown to the downside. Now, if we pay attention to our MACD on both of them, they are squeezing right now, and potentially we may be getting an entry signal, right? So an entry signal is when this red line crosses above the blue line, and you can see that that happened right over here at this time period, and we got a very nice swing to the upside from about 430 all the way up to about 485 on LMT. Over here, we can see again, we had a MACD entry signal right here on the chart, and we got a very nice move from about 96, maybe $97 up above 100 to about 101. So currently both of them, the red line is right there at the blue line, and it could get rejected and continue to head down lower, resulting in possibly a breakdown in both of these. But if we see a curl up, there is the chance that that could provide an entry signal. So that's something that I'm going to be paying a lot of attention to, is the MACD on both of these, as well as these trend lines of support, to see what happens and where we get a signal first. Now, the last stock we're going to look at is dfen, ticker symbol DFEN. This is the daily aerospace and defense bullish leveraged 3x ETF. All right. So extremely leveraged, extremely high risk, but we also have a pretty clean setup here as well. Now, instead of an upwards trend line, we actually have a triple bottom forming here, right? Here's one bottom, here's two bottom, here's three bottom right here. So we have a little bit of a triple bottom forming on dfen, ticker symbol DFEN, with a big support level here right around $18. Now, if we can push up, you notice that we have this upwards trend line here, suggesting that we still have more room to go to the upside, potentially to take us to this overhead supply zone that we got rejected in previously, around $24. Now, there's still a lot of work to be done before we can come up to those regions. We have a supply zone here from about $22 to $23 as well. And then ultimately, our major resistance levels along the way are going to be $19.83, $20.41, and $20.98. If we can break out above these levels, that's when we have the chance of hitting our two overhead supply zones from about $22 all the way up to $24. At roughly $19 a share right now, that's roughly a 30% move we have the potential for. Now, there was a significant drop here as of recently, but it was due to a bearish divergence. If you're not familiar with that term, I'm going to go ahead and help you out real quick, and we'll go over it. So notice how there's a high right here, and then there's another high on the stock. So clearly we are in an uptrend, right? Price is going higher, making higher highs. But if we take a look at our relative strength index, we can see that at these same exact points, we have a high, and then we actually have a series of lower highs right here on the RSI. Let me draw this a little bit better for you guys. So the relative strength index has been going down. This means that the stock has been losing relative strength as the price has been going up. Okay, so that right there is simply a term known as bearish divergence. And it's also highlighted here on the MACD, right? We can see we also have a divergence on the MACD where we're in a downtrend creating lower highs as the price of the stock was continuing to move up and make higher highs. Now, we've already seen a pretty significant drop from there, from $23 all the way down to $18. So we did get a pullback. That divergence may have played out, but it's something we need to keep in mind that could continue to push us down lower and potentially break that big support level of $18, at which point we have a small demand zone here at the bottom of 17 that we've tested a few times in the past, over here as well, and over here previously as well again. And then we also rejected it here. So, all of these plays could go either way. But I just wanted to present some news to you guys about what's going on with the Iran situation and the missile strikes. and then go over some stocks to pay attention to that could, be a positive or a negative catalyst for all of the above tickers that we went over in this video. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and if you did, smash that like button and subscribe to the channel. And with that being said, I'm out.